Hello and welcome to ThinkFest 2021. Thanks for joining us for today's session, The Tantalizing Future of Philadelphia Food, where I'll be speaking with three restaurateurs, Ellen Yin, Omar Tate, and Jen Zavala. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. There's Bank of America, Penn Medicine, St. Joseph's University, Western Governors University, and GoPuff. GoPuff saved my life during the pandemic. I ordered all sorts of Ben & Jerry's from them, all sorts of goodies, and they delivered it right to my door. GoPuff delivers everyday wants and needs in 30 minutes or less. There's even a Philly faves section with local brands like La Colombe, De Bruyne Brothers, Famous 4th Street, Yards, and Victory. Make sure to use the code ThinkFest for $25 off your first order and the chance to win the ultimate Philly faves delivery. A couple housekeeping notes. Please continue to join us for these conversations all week at noon and 4 p.m. daily. If you miss any sessions, we invite you to check out the recordings at phillymag.com/thinkfest. And now my conversation with Ellen, Omar, and Jen. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Omar. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to talk about the future of Philadelphia restaurants with you. I just announced recently that I'm opening my own restaurant, and I know that conversations like this and the ones that we're going to have today are incredibly important. And I think thinking about the future is only going to make the future a better place. So first and foremost, I'm going to start by having everybody go around and introduce yourselves and just tell us what you're doing in Philadelphia right now. Projects you're working on, restaurants you own, stuff like that. And we'll start with you, Ellen.
Well, thank you so much for hosting, Alex, and best of luck on your new venture. I'm excited to see what you're doing. I'm Ellen Yin. I'm co-founder of High Street Hospitality Group, which operates Fork, which next year is our 25th anniversary. High Street, which recently moved from High Street on Market to High Street Philadelphia on 9th Street. We operate a kitchen and bar on Rittenhouse Square, High Street Provisions in West Philadelphia, and High Street on Hudson in Manhattan. So that's what I've been up to, as well as supporting the Sisterly Love Collective and other projects that I've been involved with for the past.
Omar,
I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot the wonton project. I'm still making wontons. Right.
You're doing everything.
On the side. Myself. Right. Sorry.
Of course.
Me next? Great. Hi, everyone. Omar Tate, co-founder of Honeysuckle Projects with my wife and partner, Sybil St. Tate. We are currently opening Honeysuckle Provisions as a cafe grocery, and we are also operating a farm at Honeysuckle, which is at 46 and Market Streets. Both entities are in West Philadelphia, and we will be serving affordable groceries and a small, hot, and cold takeout offerings while integrating the produce that we grow from our farm and collecting our distribution network from local Black farmers within the tri-state area and as far south as Maryland at this point. Also proud to say that I am a Fork alumni. So
hell yeah.
Love and I am a proud mom.
Cool. And Jen?
Well, congratulations to all of you on all of your upcoming ventures and successes thus far. Ellen, I really look up to you a lot, and I'm so happy to see you doing such great things out here. And Omar, I'm so excited about your project. And Alex, you know I'm rooting for you over there. So
thank you.
I'm Jennifer Zavala. I'm a chef here in the city of Philadelphia for the last 14 years. I am currently opening up a space at 1941 East Passyunk Avenue, specializing in my famous tacos and tamales. I'm opening very soon. That is an adventure within itself. Next year in 2022, I will be taking a residency at Volvere for 6 weeks. I'm really excited. I started off working for Jose Garces, which is one of my official restaurant jobs here in the city, and it's coming full circle. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. So the first thing I wanted to get to is what it feels like right now in the restaurant industry. So I feel like there's this duality in play. it's this combination of like hopelessness and hopefulness, because we're in this like in between period, right? And there's a lot of hopelessness because restaurants, from like almost like a philosophical level all the way up to an operational level, have been put through this stress test over the last 2 years. And what I mean by that is that we're now like questioning their purpose, like their full-on purpose on Earth now. We're questioning what they're supposed to be contributing to the world, and we're recalibrating. And like, are they supposed to be community hubs? Are they supposed to be entertainment? What are they here for? So I want to know from you all what you think that is, and that's where the conversation is going to go, is what you think that is, and also what your purpose in this world is, in this restaurant world. So the first, I want to speak to Omar, because community seems to be a huge part of what you're doing. I think community is like almost like it's the biggest part of what you're doing, I think. You're very committed to the community that you're opening your project in. You're very involved in it. And we've seen how restaurants can physically affect communities. We've seen entire neighborhoods get built up around restaurants, and then we've also seen, restaurants take down neighborhoods because, there's in many ways they're big gentrifiers, right? So, and a lot of times those two things are not mutually exclusive. What I want to ask you, Omar, is you seem to be aiming specifically for nourishing the community that you're opening in. And I want you to speak about that, because I think there's a distinction that you make, and you've been making when you've been announcing these projects about being in the community. And I want you to, tell us about it.
Sure. I think the key word that we're looking for here is empowerment. The idea of community is a living thing. It's ever evolving, it's ever shifting. And I don't think that, there's any real need to be exclusive about what the term community means when we're asking the validity of restaurants. Should they service the community? I think that's a pretty broad and sweeping question, because I think that there's a relevancy for a Lebec fan. There are people who enjoy that experience. I don't use the word community as the antithesis to opulence or fineness and dining, because I think that there's space for everything to live. With what we're doing at Honeysuckle is, in terms of empowerment, we are empowering the community where I come from, which is the Black community in Philadelphia, and that there's several, it's not a monolith, it's not that everyone's poor, it's not that everyone's middle class or rich or any of that. It's just underrepresented across the board. Connecting our community at large in Philadelphia with Black aesthetics through food is our overarching goal, while also trying to employ folks from our community, employ new behaviors and ideas, and really sustainability of those ideas that come from Black culture into the mainstream food space in Philadelphia is our main goal. And we're servicing that by addressing an immediate need by speaking directly back to the community where I do live, did live, now I live in North Philly, but I did live in West Philly, where a lot of folks are food insecure. Not everyone is food insecure, but a lot of people just aren't aware of food offerings. And so we're trying to diversify that idea and that truth by beginning with the grocery cafe front facing, and then ultimately opening a supper club that's going to open up that more refined experience to everyone, while also at the same time, agriculture and where our food comes from is at the core of everything we do as restaurateurs, as people in food service. And so oftentimes, communities are so separated across socioeconomics. People are separated from where our food comes from, but especially so in marginalized communities, we're separated, and the idea of choice doesn't really exist. And so having this farm, having this grocery store shows that there is power in choice, that there is agency in your station in life, regardless of how much money you make. And so we're working with this farm and how that's integrated into the grocery cafe concept.
Love that. I love that. So how are you integrating those two things? How will you be integrating those two things, the farm and the grocery concept? Are you literally growing all the things and selling
Not
Or
everything, not
okay.
everything. We're growing a lot of things this year. We actually started the farm this year in July or late
Awesome.
June. And so we were kind of late in season, but we did grow a bunch of different peas that was kind of, we were expressing the values of Dr. George Washington Carver, in that cow peas are cover crops. But if you look at the African diaspora, peas themselves are just such a large part of the diet. And so we grew 5 different types of peas. We grew lima beans, and then we grew
Oh,
some
cool.
eggplant and some tomatoes and things like that. And those are things that we can grow in the store that are like white labeled, so to speak, that we can sell in the store. But it's really a representation of Black foodways from an agricultural standpoint, and we're extending that relationship to other Black farmers, and I mean farmers in general. But like I said, we're focusing on Black farmers in the area, extending that relationship and showing what a full,
Sure.
holistic approach towards Black culture looks like through food.
Yeah, yeah. Was this always the plan for you?
Initially, yes and no. Initially, what I wanted to do was I also used to work at Russet, which closed, I think, 2 years ago. And I was in conversation with Andrew then about, oh, how do I get this space? We wanted to rent that space, and I wanted to turn that space into a supper club and art cafe, and then invite the hood to come down, and like we were
Yeah.
gonna do special programs for children and things like that. We wanted to invite artists and authors to come and speak and do different engagements. It was gonna be membership based. But we took that idea and placed it in the hood where I grew up, adding the grocery component to it, and we're still going to be able to continue all the cultural and artistic parts of what we're doing, while still servicing a direct need.
Right, I see.
Yeah, and so it's more of an addition and an evolution than it is and it's not binary. It's not either or.
Yeah. Would this be happening if it weren't for COVID? Like this would have been happening regardless, COVID or not, or did COVID spur something?
I think COVID definitely helped us come to a more complete shape of what we're going to do. Whereas prior to COVID, I think the most important thing was that I recognized what we were planning to do before would place the economy of our business in the center of the city, which is pretty much what Philadelphia does. Everything goes inward. And I think the past couple of years, you're witnessing the revitalization of several neighborhoods. Like, Pass Junk has been going on for the past 12 to 15 years. You look at Northern Liberties and Kensington, those areas, which were we want to talk about poverty. We're extremely poor, and no one wanted to go there.
Right.
When I was growing up, that are now renewed again. And the same thing is kind of happening on 52nd Street, but at a much slower pace, which is where we're opening. We want to be a part of that, but we also want to be a part of making sure that the history of that is at the forefront, and we want to be at the head of those conversations about what this neighborhood is going to look like 10 years from now.
Totally awesome. Jen, I want to talk to you about this too, because you are so active in your community, specifically in South Philly, but in the restaurant industry too, and also just in Philly at large. You have this you rep this town with a rabid devotion. And it seems like you're always trying to use your platform to support the little guys. At any chance you get, you're always rooting, and you're shouting their names from the rooftops. The tamale stands, the little shops that people aren't paying attention. The only people who are paying attention to it are the people who are literally around it at any given moment, right? And you're there, and you're excited about them, and you want everyone else to get excited about them. What is behind that? What drives you to do that? What makes you feel like what's the driving force there?
Well, I think for me, the driving force would be, I'm raising my kids here. I have a 15-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. And, having been in this business for a really long time, I'm going to leave something behind. I would like to leave something behind as far as my legacy goes. And as a woman, right? I fit every possible thing to shout to everyone. I'm a woman, I'm Mexican, I'm tattooed, I'm a mom, I'm short. I can reach a lot of people. And I feel like in doing so and being so welcoming, if I got invited over here, I'm gonna go. I have said yes to everything. And I think people get a little confused about what exactly do I do besides be a hellraiser here in the city. I say yes to everything. You ask me to cater, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And I think what gets lost in translation as far as with me is that it's all food related stuff that I'm saying yes to. And in doing so, I have met some of the most amazing people. And I believe that if I didn't shout their names from the rooftop or support them or seek them out, they wouldn't get noticed and they wouldn't get their opportunity that they're working really hard for.
Right.
I think that relates to what Omar said, right? Like empowerment. And if you don't, see yourself out there, then you are the one that needs to be seen. And I feel like the way I am, my background, and the way I look is important for visibility wise, for people to see that as a woman in this industry, Ellen, I'm sure, who has, been doing this much more in depth than myself, knows how difficult it's been coming from no women to now seeing lots of women, and how important it is to continue to be loud and to express yourself and demand things to be different. And in order to do that, you have to connect and listen and understand everybody. So for me, what's important is I don't have, and I didn't always have, a ridiculous amount of resources in my Rolodex. And those people who were overlooked or don't get noticed have put me where I am today. And I will continue to shout and support that and give back to that, because I believe that that's what's gotten me here. In order to receive, you have to give.
Absolutely.
And I firmly believe that, in our community, there's so much positivity in us showing support for each other and being cheerleaders for each other, especially the people who are overlooked, who aren't considered, and who don't think they have a chance, right? Like,
right.
I believe that that's what's made me be able to connect with so many different people. Just,
And it's really cool to see also that when you do shout their names from the rooftops, they do eventually get, like, you have influence, and it's really cool to see you're at least using your influence in some way that's beneficial to the people around you. We need more of that in the world. Ellen, speaking to, Jen was talking about women in the industry. You've been, well, more than that, but like, here's what's interesting. Your perspective is interesting because just in the last year, you've been so incredibly involved, and specifically about, and most publicly about helping and mentor and support women in the restaurant industry. But it's fascinating to see because you've been doing this for 25 years. Is that how old Fork is?
24.
24 years.
Starting our 25th year. Yeah.
There you go. 20. Yeah, we'll call it 25. And most people who are in this game this long burn out, or they literally sit back and wait for the next generation to fix the problems that their generation couldn't, right? But you're still like plugging yourself, and you're putting yourself out there, and you're doing the work still. So it's fascinating to see somebody who's been in it this long to do it. And I'm curious to know what do you see your role as in the restaurant industry, in Philadelphia's restaurant industry specifically?
I certainly hope that, somebody said something about leaving a legacy, and, I hope that I can influence. It feels like when I go out to eat, there's always somebody I recognize, which is great to see, that people like Omar or others have succeeded and reached, their dreams as I did. I mean, for me, opening a restaurant was my life dream, and it can't. Once you reach it, then your new dream has to like start evolving. Yeah. And so, for me, as Jen said, I've been very, very lucky to have a lot of networks and different types of support along the way. And so I do feel that it is my responsibility to help people move forward in whatever that they decide that they want to do. Again, like Jen, I never say no to anybody, particularly when it comes to somebody asking me for help or seeing somebody who could benefit from help. And I think that that's really important. My empowerment is toward the people that cross my path that I want to see succeed, and trying to support them in whatever way I can. Maybe they're only in my direct sphere for a year or less even, but I want them, anybody who comes through my door, I want them to be better than when they started. And so that's always been a mission of mine for 24 years. But, I think that for me, the pandemic really made me stop and look. And, first of all, we were so much busier than we are now. And so I do have a lot more extra time on my hands, but I love being in the mix, and I feel like being in the mix is vital to understanding what customers are about and what the staff is about. And we have had a major disruption, and we have to really understand everything that's going on around us to make ourselves better for customers and make ourselves better for our teams. We have to really be able to be in the mix to understand what has to happen in the next year or two.
Right. Tell us more about the Sisterly Love. I know it's a food fair, but it's also an organization, correct?
So yeah, Sisterly Love came out of a series of phone calls that a friend of mine in Chicago started, called Let's Talk, and was really just a way for women restaurateurs to come together and be able to give information, networks, space to complain, be empathetic. And it grew into something that that we're all very proud of. My co-hosts are Jill Weber from Sojourn's Hospitality, Jezebel Carriega, and Jennifer Carroll, and Bridget Foy, who really coined Sisterly Love Food Fairs, was very involved. And we all work together to try to figure out how can we collectively move forward from this. So we just recently came under the umbrella of Les Dames Escoffier, which is a nonprofit organization. You need to have a fiscal sponsor. You can't raise money or do anything without having that EIN and umbrella to be under. And so we're really excited about the future. We have the Sisterly Love Food Fairs. We have the happy hours. We also have been doing the suppers as a philanthropic project. We'll be doing different things throughout the year together. And, this recent event was just a great way. And Jen, thank you so much for being part of it. But it was just an incredible showing of women coming together. And Omar, thank you for being one of the behind the scenes helpers. But so many people came together to make it a success, and enabled us to raise $25,000 for Women Against Abuse. But the miracle of this thing is it all started to be planned in August, and the event was October 3rd. So it just shows that when people who are aligned come together, they can really put their minds to it and get things accomplished.
Yeah. And Philly it's such a tight-knit community that there is that potential where you can get all these people together because everyone's talking, that's one of the good things about the city is that everyone's, in each other's phones. So now I want to pivot to the entertainment side of restaurants or the business side of restaurants, because in the end, the business of restaurants is entertaining, I think. That is what people come to pay. That's what people pay for. They want to be.
You meant that the business was entertaining.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the business is for sure entertaining, but yeah, I think entertainment is the business of restaurants. And Omar, I want to talk a little bit about your pop-up that you've done in the last few years, because it's not, the Honeysuckle pop-up is way more than a chef pop-up, and it has a much deeper meaning and it tells a much different story. So tell us about that pop-up specifically, and then I have a follow-up question.
Sure. Well, I guess we got to start with like why and how the pop-up began.
Sure.
That entertainment experience that you're talking about was largely as I participated in it, was largely centered around Eurocentric ideas, having worked at restaurants that lived under the banner of New American or French or Italian or Spanish or whatever. Not really seeing any African American aesthetics represented in that, and then to go beyond that, if I did go to a restaurant that represented Black aesthetics, it was typically Southern or West Indian that have like very definitive characteristics and ideas, and like they live under their own flags essentially, right?
Right.
And we can kind of like taste those foods when you say the word Jamaican, or you can taste those foods when you say the word Southern, in your mind. What I didn't understand was what that would look like for someone who is 4 generations removed from the South, having my family been in this country ancestrally for 250 years. I wanted to create a space that I felt like was home, and that's how that began. But I knew that if I started making food in a way that was unfamiliar to many folks, that there would be a lot of questions. And so what emerged from that was I've always been a practicing artist, not having gone to school for art, but I've always been an artist. Writing poetry and creating art that contextualize that experience. And then the food went from just not just representations of me, like dishes that were called unfried fish, that was deconstructed representation of my mother's fish, but going into a dish called clarindi, which is basically a surf and turf of beef tartare and squid ink that represents a Black stage play where the actors had to wear blackface. I really began to create mosaics on dishes that represented Black experiences that were quite nuanced. And so that was the experience. And it's many layers.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing and fascinating. And from my understanding, a lot of it was meant to be uncomfortable for the people that, or not uncomfortable, but like a lot of your clientele or the guests that you would invite that were paying for this menu were probably made to feel uncomfortable. Is that right?
I mean, the intention was never to make anyone feel uncomfortable. The intention was always to just tell the truth. And if the truth oftentimes makes people uncomfortable. And I mean, when I say the truth, I'm not just talking about like me dealing with issues like blackface. I'm talking about uncomfortable in the idea of what the value of food is. There was one time where I made a dish that was completely just made of stewed greens and a mushroom broth. And that was the whole dish. And the idea behind that dish is like, this value is equal to the value of a place like Blue Hill, where they give you just a carrot on a plate. I'm just gonna give you greens on a plate that were sourced from local farmers in New York State. And we foraged mushrooms and we made aminos and did all this stuff. But a guest got it and said that the dish it's not worth being its own dish, let alone a side. And that to me was one of the answers I was looking for, right? Because I knew that people felt that way about food like that, but I also knew that people can enjoy it at a value that it deserved to be enjoyed at, and when you talk about the business side of things, buying something as simple as collard greens that have been grown with care and intention can be sometimes more expensive than a pork chop, So yeah, that's the level. Well, those are the layers of uncomfortability that people were working through social uncomfortability and value perception uncomfortability. But in navigating all that, Honeysuckle has been able to help establish a new space and the idea of Black foodways that is now kind of thriving in acceptance in media and the restaurant industry as a whole.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. Is there going to be an element to this pop-up at your new project in West Philly?
Yeah, as I said, we're leading with the farm and the grocery and the cafe, but ultimately stage 3 is to reopen, not reopen the pop-up, but establish a supper club in the off hours of the cafe.
I see. Okay.
Dinners that represent that.
And you're going to continue to do the things that you were doing in the pop-up. I see. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Jen, when we talk about the entertainment side of restaurants or the business side of restaurants, part of it is how people have to pay for the entertainment, right? And what goes into the pricing a menu or pricing or paying your employees. It's all part of it, right? So you're doing this very ambitious thing with your taco shop, the taqueria. Is it a taco? Can we call it a taqueria?
Sure.
Okay, your taqueria in East Passyunk, where you're doing $15 an hour, 20% auto gratuity. Is that right? And you're splitting that with the front and back of house, which is new. You're offering health insurance and paid vacation. Your paid vacation, and that's coming from a taco shop. Like, to me, it borders on absurdity, because I don't understand how you can do any of that and not charge people $40 for a taco. And I would love to hear, as somebody who's about to open a restaurant, I would love to hear what goes into building a business model like that.
Well, I don't actually think it's that, abnormal. I think it's overdue. The slowest time of the year is August. And I think it's, for people who are doubting it, I don't think it's very creative in thinking. Like, I also do a lot of catering. And for August, I got asked to do Firefly. I said no, because I'm in the middle of opening a restaurant. And there are large accounts, of corporations and businesses who would like to utilize my services and eat tacos. And in January, there's also holiday parties and stuff. So although the taco shop will be closed, I'll still be working. And I think, what I've learned over the years is what's most important is my family and the people that I work with, ultimately showing them respect because they're allowing me to not have a boss. And appreciating your staff and investing in your staff will only make you more successful. I don't see it as like, to offer people insurance is such a like, oh my gosh, it's such a big deal. You're only open 3 days. Like, I'm really busy on those 3 days. Barbacoa has stayed significantly busy through their years of just doing one particular kind of taco with a splash of here or there items, and then having to open other places to offer those other items that they do really well. So the motto actually does work and is successful. And I believe that it's just overdue. Insurance, if you're not offering insurance for your staff at this point after COVID, really the stress of not what happens if you get it, it was almost more harmful than actually getting it. And I saw a lot of people who are servers, who are back of the house people who didn't have insurance, and the stress and anxiety, which was already pre-existing condition, just magnified worse. And people's mental health took a huge turn. What if I get COVID? Well, I have COVID. How am I going to find care? I think for me, this was a great opportunity. The like shake in the system was a great opportunity to be like, let's all do this. Let's all invest in our employees. Because ultimately, your employees are what make your business. So let's invest in them. And, hopefully shouting this from the rooftops will get people to come eat tacos with a purpose. And I don't have a big menu. And I'm also sourcing exceptionally local. So, I'm not committed to anything that's going to affect my bottom line. I can pivot and move and get the things I need locally at a way less cost. And I'm supporting the people around me, which is what I referenced before. Like, I will continue to do that. And as a woman, to be coming out here and saying, I don't know, I think we should pay people a reasonable amount of money. And I think, adding 20% on to people's check is kind of like, I appreciate you coming, but I'm not going to rely on you, being grateful for your experience. And with the cost of everything, during this past year, I, was, not working and pursuing this project. During this last year, what I saw was a lot of entitlement when you go out to eat. And that entitlement carrying over and in affecting people who are there, working their asses off and providing that entertainment. Because during the pandemic, food was everything. Food was the reason why you went out. Food was the entertainment. Food was the experience. Besides all the death that was happening, everyone's getting COVID and wear a mask. Like, this was what people did. And it, with the restaurant relief funds and everything, it's important that that was shared amongst people to keep it going, because during the holidays, during special occasions, those businesses, food business is still there. It's still the purpose. It's still the entertainment for everyone. And to let it just fade away, would be, a detriment to the community and, awful for everybody. So, although it is only open 3 days, it is the most important 3 days of my life.
Yeah, totally.
People have to eat. People have to eat. I have to support families. I have to support my own family. And, I hope and pray that those 3 days will, be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, and the mental health. Like, I think, especially you, Alex, you getting ready to open a place, consider that being open on the grind 6-7 days a week is not the move. Like, smaller menu, more focus, is more the move for everyone's mental health. If you feel safe and stable in your work environment, that you're not working to prove something all of the time, then
I remember when I worked in restaurants, the amount of times and this is not a secret, so I'm going to say it. The amount of times I've been forced to work, I was sick as a dog, but forced to work anyway. And that's like a small example, but like I was not taking care of myself and I had to work. And that doesn't exist in many other industries. People are allowed to stay home, you get days off, but that doesn't exist in the restaurant industry. And the amount of times I've had to, that was just a small example, but the amount of times I had to work sick was bizarre. Like, when I think about it now, I'm like, Jesus, I was just around people's food sick. It's crazy.
Right. It's awful. And I think that, that's just not, that's not going to do anymore. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable anymore. And it's important for people like myself and Omar and Ellen to make sure to take a stand and to, in a stand in the sense of like, this is what I'm going to do to change the path for the next group of people that are coming in. I think what's important to me, especially, I'm a little more casual, a lot more casual than Ellen and Omar, assuming we will be. And I think what I take very seriously is work trauma. There'd be a lot of young people that I work with, and seeing grown adults come in and, really traumatize these kids into seeing the awesome experiences that you can have in food service. Like, fast food workers is for everyone. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, you'll eat a Big Mac. And therefore, all those different shades coming up to the window to get their food offers a very different experience. And fast food workers are the most underappreciated workers and almost looked down upon, right? Like, oh, I'm a James Stewart Award winner. And then a person at McDonald's. The person at McDonald's has to deal with so much, you know what I mean? That they should also be winning an award for having to manage through all of that. So,
it's a good point.
I think for me, what I take very seriously from what I've experienced in my own self is, trauma and having young people have a negative experience working in food service. It is so powerful. Food is so powerful that I want to make sure that I'm painting the right picture for these kids.
Love it. I love it. Ellen, I keep referring to this as the before and there's the after. And in the before, there was a tried and true restaurant model that everyone operated with for decades and decades and decades and decades, and it worked. I mean, to the detriment of many people in the industry, but it worked. Like, restaurants were able to open and exist. And there was a part of me that's like, when this is over, I was like, everyone's just going to go right back. They're going to go right back into what it used to be, especially like the ones that are like the bigger restaurant groups, the ones with a lot of power. It's easy. It's so much easier to do the old thing than a new thing. And you're almost like, life incentivizes you to do the old thing over the new thing. So I want to know, are you doing anything in your restaurants right now to keep people and pull talent in? Because I know there's a labor shortage. It's hard to get people right now. What are you doing to make it attractive again to work in the restaurant industry?
Well, any change is difficult. And this has definitely been like I said earlier, major disruption to the hospitality industry. I mean, there were times in last March when I felt like my world was coming to an end, consulted bankruptcy attorneys and whatnot. So, so I don't think that things can just go back to normal because, you know, first of all, if you think about our current situation, there's always a third of the people in the restaurant industry who are in the process of moving on to something else.
Right.
Maybe they graduated from college and they're ready to move on to something else. They don't like it anymore. They're studying to be a real estate agent. So the pandemic just forced all those people to move more quickly into their next thing. But you always have another third who are entering the industry, and that has not been happening because universities have been closed, and quite frankly, who wants to work for an industry whose everybody is saying has such low margins and no backup plan, and you know, all that. So
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
so we have a major problem on our hands, which is that we have to draw more people into our industry again, and we have to rebuild the desire for people to want to be in this industry. Jen, you just talked about McDonald's. I mean, like, the restaurant industry trains so many young people in customer service, how to deal with people, whether it's positive or negative. It trains people how to basically cope with you know, wherever they need to go in the future. And so I still believe that this is an industry that people should want to go into because it helps prepare you for the future. So we do need to figure out how to attract more people into the industry, and we have to look in new places because the old places, culinary agents, Craigslist, they're not producing candidates like they were before. So right. You know, really trying to figure out how to help people who may not even be aware that the hospitality industry is a choice, know that this can be a really lucrative business. I mean, you know, our team members are making anywhere from, you know, $15 to $30 an hour. I mean, you know, that's a huge range, and the restaurant industry provides that type of opportunity. Yeah. So trying to figure that out means that you have to be able to train people, develop people, give people the view that there's more to it than just coming in as a porter or a server or a bus person. I started my career in this industry as a bus girl. Okay, I was a bus girl in a French restaurant in my hometown in New Jersey, and you know, I moved my way through all the different positions, and that is, I still believe that you know, that is still the way that we have to train people, but you know, I thoroughly believe that for this industry to move forward, we have to look at people as professionals. And what does that mean? I've believed this since 1998 when we opened, that servers need to be heard. They need to receive benefits, healthcare, 401k, cafeteria plans, transportation tax credits, now student loan debt reduction, you know, paid time off, all vacation pay, all these things are really important. And we need to figure out how to do more with less. And that doesn't mean working the people that are the most valuable harder. It means working smarter and, you know, figuring out how people can do multiple things, and recognizing that the porter who does prep and who does all these other things is your most valuable person, and they shouldn't be capped off at $16 or $17 or $18 an hour. They might be your most valuable person, and maybe they deserve to make $25 or $30 an hour. So looking at the whole compensation model in a new way, that has always been something that I've been passionate about, but it's really hard to take that risk, quite frankly, because especially when you're a large operation, you can't afford a walkout or, you know, anything like that because people don't agree. So you have to really build consensus when you're making these changes. So also that I really believe.
Yeah, and I think there's another huge element of this is that it's a symbiotic relationship with the guests. The guests need to also want this change, and they need to invest in this change, in
Yeah.
the change in the restaurant industry with their money.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, there is no doubt that there's going to be price inflation because, I mean, let's just look at our bakery department, for example. You know, our bakery department is the most labor intensive. The food cost of bread has always been traditionally low, but it's always been about the labor. So the labor cost goes up. The cost of bread eventually has to go up.
Right.
And we're seeing that with supply chain disruption, everything in every industry because of our current situation is going to go up in price.
That's right.
And we have to be ready to face that. I happened to be in the restaurant the other night, and a very renowned economist came in, and I'm like, what are we going to do? How are people going to be able to afford this? And they really believe that there is money in the economy because there's pent up demand, and this is very business related, but you know, that there's pent up demand, that people have the money to spend and they will spend it, you know, because they want that experience, as Jen and Omar were talking about.
Right.
But it's still hard because we've all been in a super competitive environment and everybody is afraid to raise their prices, but inevitably we're going to have to, and customers will have to, you know, join us in that effort. And you know, I think added gratuity, all these things, they are going to be part of our you know, our dining scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to do? Are you going to be hospitality included?
I'm pretty sure I am. I'm still working out the model, the labor model, but there are new options now. Like I'm seeing like the way Middle Child Clubhouse is doing an autograt and then splitting between front and back, and how they're doing 85% for front of house staff and 15% for back of house. That creates a better relationship between the front and back of house, which working in restaurants, you know, it's like especially in the before, it was a war between front and back of house. It was just a very angry relationship between the front and back of house. Every restaurant.
I would say that, like, at the beginning of any restaurant, everybody comes together because there's a common mission to get this restaurant open and successful. And you have the most opportunity right now because you're not changing a culture. You're not trying to like fight anybody. You're starting from ground zero. So the opportunity, you know, I really believe that there's tremendous hope in our industry because we're starting from ground up, and everybody who's starting from ground up, it's us dinosaurs who, like, we have to maneuver this ship. It's much harder to maneuver the ship than it is to like start from brand new.
Absolutely. And that is such a great point. And I actually do want to talk about this last thing. What are the things that are most exciting you? And we can go in order, but what are you most excited about in the food scene, right? It could be a restaurant that you just want to try, or it could be something that's caught your eye. What are you most excited about in the Philly food scene right now? Now we'll go back to you, Ellen, and then we go Jen and Omar.
I'm excited about this. This is like, I'm very excited to see how we can reinvent the business model of the restaurant. And, you know, it's going to have to change, and it's a Band-Aid that's going to get ripped off at some point. We need government support in this. You know, there's a lot of things that we need, and that's why replenishing the Restaurant Relief Act is so important, because it gives existing operators the opportunity to experiment and try to refigure out their business model, because we can't just turn it back on. It's not going to happen. And we need restaurants in the city to draw people back into the city, because we need all of the office workers who have been working remote. We need them back downtown. The downtown area is the mothership, and the mothership provides you know, opportunities to make the quality of life in our global, or our region better, and we can't let that go. So we have to reinvent it. So I'm super excited about that. Of course, you know, seeing all the vacant spaces come back to life, that's going to be really exciting. So I'm excited. Awesome.
Yeah. Jen?
Well, I'm excited for all of your projects that are coming. Alex, you'll be a neighbor, so I'm really excited about that.
Buddies. Yeah.
So that's a given, obviously. So what I am most fired up about is yes, this shift, exactly what Ellen said, right? For one, I just want to just clarify, I am not afraid to do this at all. I'm not afraid to increase my prices. I'm not afraid to pay staff a living wage. I'm not afraid to charge 20%, gratuity. And I'm not afraid to tell people no modification. I have no fear, and I'm not afraid to lose anything. So, I guess I'll be the first one to kind of take that hit, and I have absolutely no problem with doing that. What most excites me, really, besides that, is social media and how much of a reach that has, and how much of an influence on my success it's been. I had mentioned before and shared, YouTube and those kinds of things should definitely not get overlooked. They have a huge amount of power because they have a huge amount of reach. And with that reach comes relatability, right? And that allows you to kind of navigate your business through all of those different things. For me, it's my moral, right? So, I'm very active on social media, and I'm always talking about the things in this business that I wish, would change. And I get really fired up about it. And I like to share those ideas because I like to see other people get fired up about it and want to support a better team. And using social media and YouTubers, vloggers has been a huge asset in me being able to do that and feel confident with going forth with some of these changes that I've shared. A month's paid vacation, is a great sell, but I absolutely am doing it with the best intentions of, offering a life to my staff, mental health, and, regrouping as a business.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing how that shifts.
Hell yeah.
And with you being gone, Alex, out of Philadelphia Magazine, that can only mean that's my next venture. We need a woman out here.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Please apply.
I think I got it. I don't know if I need to apply. Who do I need to call around here?
It's so funny. All right, Omar, what are you excited about?
Honestly, what I'm excited about isn't really anything that people can really see in a front-facing way. I'm excited to see how federal agents and state legislature is going to continue to wrap its arms around and support the hospitality and restaurant industry, not just as an amenity to cities, but as essential and vital to cities. I mean,
Right.
Ellen hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you think about how municipalities and civilizations form, it's like community, and then the very next question is food source. Like communities and civilizations are shaped around food sources, and then after that is healthcare, medicine. So I think I'm excited to be a part of a community internally that's going to push for policy that will support the hike in prices, that will support the increase in labor, that will support the need for support for fractured and disrupted distribution channels that we're experiencing right now in nation and in food quality. All those things are extremely important, and I think that the pandemic has shown us nothing. It's absolutely positively shown us how fragile and exploitative all those systems are, and there are a lot of grants that are and policies that are being formed as we speak with longevity in mind that will help businesses that are coming into this space newly to continue to support that. I mean, where we are right now, we have a GoFundMe up, but we've also been awarded a few grants where we have 4 employees and we're able to pay them between $18 and $23 an hour, to do that. We don't want that to change. I hate the question to restaurateurs. It's like victim blaming. Like, what are you going to do to fix the restaurant industry? A lot of people, when Ellen opened Fork 25 years ago, she opened Fork in a restaurant industry that's 400, 500 years old, and to ask Ellen on the back end of this, like, how are you going to fix it, is quite honestly a shitty question. How are we going to fix it as a state? How are we going to fix it as a civilization is what I'm looking forward to.
Right. Makes sense. Institutional changes.
Yeah.
That's it for me. I just want to thank all three of you. You are so wonderful. You are such a wealth of knowledge. All three of you are amazing, and I couldn't be more appreciative of you being here today and doing this. And thank you.
Thanks for including us.
Thank you. This is great.
Thanks, Alex.